Hey everyone, it's Ventus, and I'm going to do some opening statements for Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. Usually I do opening statements for about 5 to 10 minutes or so in the first part of my playthrough, but since this is Fire Emblem, the games are generally split into chapters or paralogs or something, and it's going to be harder to do opening statements in a game like that. I always want to keep that chapter format in the videos so that the viewers can sort through and watch it more easily. For instance, if you want to watch Conquest Chapter 9 or some other interesting map without watching any of the other stuff in between or after, you have the option of doing that just by searching it. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm separating the opening statements from the actual playthrough. Alright, it should go without saying though, but some people, probably the ones who aren't going to watch this video anyway, they're stupidly unaware that I do blind playthroughs on my channel. Unless it clearly states it otherwise, it's going to be a blind playthrough. So yeah, this is a blind playthrough. That means that I know little to nothing about the game. The only characters I know are the ones that appear in Fire Emblem Heroes. I know that Pala, Katria, and Est appear, the Macedonian Pegasus sisters. And apparently Camus also appears in this game. I don't even know if people know who Camus is, because he's a Shadow Dragon character, and in Shadow Dragon, almost all the characters are pretty boring, but I thought that he was a pretty interesting character. It's not difficult to be interesting in that game. You just have to not be bland and one-dimensional. And he had, like, some development, and he was somewhat multi-dimensional. Like, even then, he was, compared to games with actual fleshed-out characters, he doesn't really compare, but I always thought he was cool. But yeah, anyway, I'll be feeling my way around the game and learning as I go, so unless the game is like so different that it's not even Fire Emblem anymore, because I've played every single Fire Emblem game released in the West. Started with 7, played 8, 9, 10, Shadow Dragon, piece of garbage, Awakening, Fates. The Fates playthrough is actually on my channel. I just hope that this playthrough doesn't end up being like the Fates one, because that one, it took me a really long time to get it up on YouTube. It took me like I think a month and a half or 2 months to finish the game while streaming it. Obviously this is not being streamed, it's just being recorded. But it took me like a year to get every episode, every chapter, paralogue, intermission, whatever, up on YouTube. So yeah, that was really late. Hopefully this won't be the case, because I still have more stuff in my backlog that I need to deal with. But as for what I'm going to be doing in this game, I'm going to be doing the hardest difficulty. I heard that there wasn't lunatics, so we're going to do hard mode. And I'll be using... essentially my favorite characters are the ones that feel good to me. So no guides, no walkthroughs, no spoilers, nothing like that. I think I have pretty decent judgment on which characters are good. Having played all the games already. It should be said that I'm more of like a classic loyalist than a lot of the newer players out there. Newer players... Or players who like obsess over growth rates. They think, like, oh, growth rates are everything. So they see characters like Nino, and they're like, Nino's the best mage in the game. But she's not, because you get her super late, and you have to like pump her full of items and whatever. So I'm like the one that prefers to use like Pent and Urk, the ones that you actually have time to develop. Similarly in Fates, like when I was doing my Fates playthrough, people were like, oh, you should use Hana. I was going to tell this story in one of the Fire Emblem Heroes playthroughs. I'm going to tell it now. You should use Hana because she's better than Ryoma. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Are you kidding me? Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, I'm serious. Because Hana's growth rates are higher than Ryoma. She has more strength and speed, therefore she's better. I mean, he didn't say, therefore she's better, but that was the implication. I'm like, okay. So you're telling me that just because you have higher speed and strength, the character is better. Doesn't make any sense. If you actually think that, then you're... I don't know what you're thinking. Because you need to consider a lot of things, like exclusive weapons. Raijinto is really, really OP. 2 attack range, 1 to 2 attack range, in a game where ranged weapons are almost always just 2 attack range. That's broken. Dual guard charging, no matter the distance, that's broken. Ranged weapons with 1 or 2 range are broken. Which is why ninjas were so broken. Even though they had lower might in their weapons. I mean, there's like so many different factors to consider. inexperienced players jump to the conclusion when they see higher numbers, it's better. Oh, and also Hana's special ability, her personal ability, is like a crappy version of Savage Blow, whereas Ryoma actually gets good stats that matter when he pairs up, and you almost always pair up in Birthright and Revelation. In Conquest, not as much, because you actually need to split damage and use Dual Strike more often. But yeah, that's just a little segue. This intro is going to be longer than I expected because I said that. I had to tell that story. But yeah, I'm a more of a loyalist. I don't grind. No grind, no DLC, hardest difficulty. I say no grind, but it's kind of like a loose restriction. I put these restrictions on myself because it makes the game more interesting. But it's a loose restriction. Like, no grind means I'm not going to do arena battles or DLC grinding or something like that. 99% of the time. If, like, I kind of cheated on one of my playthroughs in Fates. I'm like, okay, because I really want to use Odin, I'm going to do one of the invasions. And the invasions are kind of like grinding. So it's a little bit of a cheat for that playthrough. But I really wanted to use Odin, because Odin's awesome. But for this game, if it's like an open world kind of thing, then optional areas, like the monster battles in Sacred Stones, I'm not going to be doing those, most likely. Unless you have to do them to get to an area, but I don't know yet. I don't know what it's like yet. So yeah, everything I'm going to be doing will be based on my perception, my judgment, my experience. That's just the basic concept of a blind playthrough, right? The integrity of the run must be maintained without outside influence. So with that being said, I won't be immediately reading comments on these videos. If people leave anything, I'll read them later. I'm turning off notifications while I'm doing this playthrough. So you're still free to leave whatever you want. And if you say something stupid, I'll ban you later. But yeah, that's a little disclaimer. Also, this should go without saying, but these videos are recordings. So there's a very good chance that by the time the video becomes public on YouTube, I'll be several hours past that part of the game. So yeah, keep that in mind. Okay, so what else do I know about the game? It's kind of like an oddball Fire Emblem, even among the classic series. I heard that there's the world map. It might be like open world, and there's some dungeon crawling apparently. That's really strange. So this is obviously a clear departure from the chapter system and Fire Emblem in general. So I don't know if videos will be separated by chapters at this point going into the game. But we'll see as when the time comes when I actually start new game. In terms of open world, I heard that 4 had something like that. But I never played 4 because it was Japanese only. Like, one of these days, I keep saying this all the time, but one of these days I'm probably going to play it. Even though I heard, from a mechanical standpoint, after playing Fates especially, going back to Fire Emblem 4 is like torture. And for games I played, obviously Sacred Stones and Awakening had something similar to an open world, but not really. So I'm actually excited to see what this game is like. I also heard that weapon triangle and class changing are different. I mean, weapon triangle is a pretty archaic concept by now. It's a very RNG concept. It's honestly done better in Fire Emblem Heroes, weapon triangle. Seriously, it really is. Having the damage increase and damage reduction is so much better than bonus might, hit, and avoid, because the less RNG you have, the more consistent the game will be, and that's generally what games are like nowadays. Older games rely more on RNG. Newer games, not as much, especially competitive games. So if you have any competitive experience, you'll realize that. So I have competitive experience with first-person shooters, obviously League of Legends, Pokemon. If you play Pokemon in like Gen 1, Gen 2, it's vastly different from Pokemon in Gen 3, Gen 4, and then it's vastly different from current generation Pokemon, Gen 7. They change like accuracy rates, they change the way things are done. There's like a lot more consistency in the game. Even though there is still RNG, hit rates are more consistent now. Instead of having like 95 accuracy abilities, they're 100 now. The 90% accuracy abilities are very rare. They have to have some kind of secondary effect. And then every single type now has a consistently powerful move, the 90 base power moves. So, you know, that's just an example from a game, since this is a Nintendo game, from a game that you might have played, where things have changed a lot in recent years. And some of these changes may be seamless to some people, but they are quite apparent if you actually think about it and in a more analytical way. So yeah, hopefully this game will be more consistent, and removing the RNG aspects would be more fun overall. Maybe not more fun to watch, because sometimes when you watch something RNG, watching someone get screwed by RNG, it's actually really fun. It's funny to watch people getting screwed by RNG, but it's not fun to be the recipient of that screw, getting screwed. Fates did this pretty well, and it's good that they actually... I mean, like, Fate's a terrible story. If you think otherwise, then... If you think Fate's story is good, then you think any story is good, basically. That's what I think. So those were terrible stories. But in terms of gameplay, those games were really good. They had very little faults. They added bows, tomes, and daggers into the weapon triangle. They added weapon triangle colors. They switched up the dual strike system, dual guard system, pair-up system, I should say. In Awakening, you had to basically always pair up, and you get like % chance to attack and defend, which is really broken. But in Fates, it's consistent. 100% chance to attack if you have an adjacent ally, but in exchange, they do less damage. And then 100% chance to guard, but you have to build up charges for dual guard. So these are things that are not RNG and more consistent, and then you can like predict, you know, in one turn, in one attack, in 2 attacks, like what's going to happen in the future. It's more strategy. This is a strategy game. And removing the RNG in a strategy game means that your mental approach, your strategy, your tactics will actually pay off more. This intro's going on way too long. But whatever, it's a separate video, it doesn't really matter. You watch it or you don't. I honestly don't care. What else is there? I'm just looking at my notes. What else to talk about? From what I heard, Echoes is going to be strange. And potentially bad, from what I've heard. I don't know if this is actually going to be the case. This is other people saying this. There is a channel that I frequent. There's only one channel, basically, but there are people that play Fire Emblem and stuff, and they talk about it. I have to avoid the channel now, because they actually spoil things. I mean, they spoil things because they talk about it with each other, but it's not really, like, intentionally spoiling it. I just can't read what they say or visit the channel anymore. So, yeah, I heard this game is not going to be like classic Fire Emblem, like 7 to 10. I heard it's not going to be like newer Fire Emblem, Awakening and Fates. And what I mean by this is, classic is very story-oriented. The characters, even though there's like a ton of characters for whatever reason, a lot of them have a reason to be in the war. They have some impact on the story. They're not just there. It's not like, you know, in Fates, how every single cutscene there's either Niles or Silas or Tsubaki. Because these are characters that always appear in the game because they can't die. They just retreat. And then they're in like every cutscene in paralogs, and then they never actually appear in the main story cutscenes, or very, very rarely do they appear in the main story cutscenes, and it's always the royals. So the game focuses around royals or like fodder general characters. Kaze too. Kaze's in every playthrough, right? Except for Birthright 15 plus if you don't reach A support, which is still really stupid, by the way. When that actually happened when I was playing Fates, I thought it was so stupid. Because if you do a blind playthrough and you don't know that's going to happen, then... yeah. That caught me off guard. But I restarted that playthrough anyway. Oh wait, no I didn't. Did I? I restarted it, but I didn't... oh, I remember what happened now. I reached that chapter on hard mode and I'm like, this is too easy, so I went to Lunatic. I redid every chapter up until then and then continued the playthrough on Lunatic. But that was the chapter where Kaze dies. So, yeah, that was really stupid. If only I knew. If only I played one more chapter, I could have saved Kaze from dying in that timeline. Oh well. What can you do? That's the fun of a blind playthrough, because you don't know what's going to happen. And those kind of unexpected moments, they will happen. But yeah, older Fire Emblems were more story-oriented, more gameplay-oriented. Newer Fire Emblems are more fan service-oriented, so they have more characters that you can like, more likable characters, and you know, there's always the shipping aspect of it where you can ship almost anyone with each other. But then you also have like generic garbage conversations that break their character, because children were attached to male characters in Fates, female characters in Awakening. The opposite gender character gets a generic conversation that doesn't fit their character at all. So it's really, it takes you away, it takes you out of the game. It hurts the immersion of the game. So I heard it's not going to be like that anymore. We're going to have supports that actually do matter, supports with characters that actually should have supports. rather than just like almost every character has supports with each other and then you can ship almost every other character. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. But that also creates an issue where this game might run Fire Emblem into the ground again, because newer players, the newer fan base is actually what made Fire Emblem alive again after Awakening. So even though I don't really like that aspect of the game, I still think that, you know, that is one of the main reasons why we still have Fire Emblem nowadays, in the West anyway. But since this is removing that and going for a more classic approach, and also not a classic approach because it's, you know, the gameplay and whatnot are going to be very different, this might actually create a bigger schism, gulf, chasm between the fan base and the developers, something like that. Take that how you will. So I don't know what to expect. I'm pretty excited though, because it's going to be different. This game has the potential to be extremely special. But then again, I said the same thing when Fates was pitched as nature versus nurture, and then that didn't happen. Could have had the best Fire Emblem story ever with nature versus nurture. Got the worst one ever, actually. That's the funny part, the irony of it. So I'm both excited and worried for the game and the franchise. As a Fire Emblem fan, though, I do have to say, the gameplay almost never disappoints, so I should be okay with it. Even if it does disappoint, I think I should have enough fun with it to let it slide. That's just my bias for this series, which is why I'm still playing the games. Alright, this is just going on way too long. It turned out to be like a rant, more of a rant on Fates instead of an opening statement on Echoes. But yeah, that's just how it goes when I have you know, opening statements and like segues and stuff, going off on tangents. That's what I do. That's just what I do. Don't like it too bad. Get out of here if you don't like it. So yeah, let's begin then. Let's put Fates behind us, start Echoes, and hopefully we'll get something special and new and not disappointing. So I'll see you guys in the playthrough.